A girl in my community named Sarah said no to a marriage proposal when she was 23 years old. The man who proposed was considered a good match. He was steady, hardworking, from a respectable family, financially stable. By every measure that mattered in our community, he was exactly the kind of man a girl should say yes to. But Sarah said no. And what happened to her after that no is a story about what it costs to refuse in a community where refusal is not supposed to be an option. My name is Hannah. I grew up Old Order Amish in Holmes County, Ohio. I married at 19 and left at 27. On this channel, I tell the stories that lived behind closed farmhouse doors. And today, I want to talk about what happens when a woman says no to marriage in a community that has not prepared her with the language or the support to refuse. The first thing that happened was silence. Not the immediate kind. The immediate response was shock. Sarah's parents were surprised. The man's parents were hurt and confused. The community was stunned. A girl did not say no to a marriage proposal. Girls said yes, or girls said they needed time to think. But girls did not simply refuse. It was not part of the framework. But after the initial shock came the silence. And that silence was far more damaging than any explicit anger would have been. The silence was the community trying to figure out how to respond to something that was not supposed to happen. The silence was the space where explanations were being constructed, where judgment was being formed, where Sarah's character was being quietly reassessed. What I understood, watching this from the outside, was that Sarah had committed a transgression. Not a sin, exactly, though there were religious implications. She had committed a social transgression. She had violated an unspoken rule. She had suggested, through her refusal, that she had the right to make decisions about her own future. She had suggested that her preferences mattered more than the community's expectations. And that suggestion was dangerous. Within a week, the bishop came to speak with Sarah. He did not come angry. He came concerned. He asked her what was wrong. He asked her why she had refused such a good man. He asked her whether she was having doubts about marriage in general, or whether there was something specific about this particular man that troubled her. Sarah told him the truth. She said that she did not feel called to marry him. She said that she wanted to wait, to see if someone else came along, someone she felt a stronger connection to. She said that she wanted to pray about it more, to make sure she was making the right decision. The bishop listened to all of this, and then he told her something that reframed her entire refusal. He told her that marriage was not about feeling called. Marriage was about obedience. Marriage was about accepting God's plan. He told her that waiting for the right person was a luxury that did not exist in her community. He told her that the man who had proposed was a good man, and that goodness should be enough. He told her that her refusal was rooted in pride. He told her that she was being selfish. He told her that a good Christian woman accepted the opportunities God provided, rather than waiting for something better. And he told her that if she continued to refuse, the community would begin to worry about her spiritual state. That threat, subtle as it was the turning point. Because what the bishop was saying, underneath his words about prayer and obedience, was that if Sarah continued to say no, there would be consequences. The community would begin to distance itself from her. People would stop inviting her to gatherings. People would begin to whisper about her. People would begin to suggest that something was wrong with her spiritually. Within 2 weeks, Sarah's mother came to her and asked her to reconsider. Her mother told her that people were talking. Her mother told her that it was not good for a girl her age to be unmarried, that unmarried women were understood to be waiting for something that would not come, that there was pity in the community for unmarried women over a certain age. Her mother told her that refusing a good man made people question her judgment. Within a month, Sarah's female cousins and aunts began to distance themselves from her. Not dramatically. They still invited her to gatherings, but they seemed less warm. They did not seek her out the way they used to. They did not include her in conversations the way they used to. Sarah was being slowly, systematically removed from the social fabric of the community because she had had the audacity to say no to a marriage proposal. What I understood watching this was that Sarah was being isolated. She was being made to feel like her refusal was not only wrong, but shameful. She was being made to feel like she had done something that had marked her as different, as other, as someone whose judgment could not be trusted. After 2 months of this slow social exile, Sarah said yes to the man's proposal. She told her parents that she had been praying and that God had shown her that this was the right path. She told the bishop that she was now at peace with the decision. She told the community that she had been foolish to refuse such a good man, and that she was grateful for their prayers and support in bringing her back to the right path. But everyone knew the truth. Everyone understood that Sarah had not changed her mind. Everyone understood that she had been pressured into saying yes. And everyone understood that this was how the community handled women who said no. not through explicit punishment, but through isolation so thorough that saying yes became the only way to restore yourself to full membership in the community. I want to be clear about what I mean by this. Sarah was not physically forced to marry. No one beat her into compliance. No one locked her in a room. What happened was far more subtle and far more effective. Sarah was made to understand, through the actions and inactions of everyone around her, that refusing to marry was not really an option. Refusing to marry meant becoming a ghost in her own community. Refusing to marry meant losing her place in the social structure that had defined her entire life. I think about the cost of that refusal. I think about what it would have meant for Sarah to actually refuse, to actually say no and mean it. It would have meant losing her family's full support. It would have meant becoming increasingly isolated. It would have meant eventually having to leave the community entirely, because there is no space in an Amish community for a single woman who has rejected marriage. There are women who do refuse. There are women who say no and mean it and do not cave to the pressure. But they do not stay in the community. They either marry someone outside the community or they leave entirely. There is no way to remain unmarried and remain Amish, not if you are a woman. A woman's place in an Amish community is defined by her relationship to a man, and if she refuses that relationship, she has no place. I knew another girl, years later, who refused a man and actually stuck to her refusal. Her name was Elizabeth. Elizabeth said no, and when the community began to isolate her, she did not cave. She said no again, and she watched, month by month, as the community slowly removed her from their lives. She was not invited to quilting circles. She was not invited to gatherings. She was not invited to help with barn raisings. She was slowly, systematically excluded from the community she had grown up in. Her own parents, who loved her, did not know how to handle her refusal. They were caught between supporting their daughter and maintaining their standing in the community. In the end, they chose their standing in the community. They told Elizabeth that if she would not marry, she would have to leave. They told her that there was no place for her in the house of a family that she was refusing to build. Elizabeth left when she was 26 years old. She went to live with an aunt who was also not married, not Amish, in a city several hours away. She built a life outside the community, but the cost of her refusal was the loss of her family, the loss of her community, the loss of everything she had ever known. What I understand now is that the question of what happens if an Amish woman says no to marriage is actually a question about whether she has the right to refuse at all. And the answer, in most Amish communities, is no. A woman does not have the right to refuse. She has the right to accept, graciously and gratefully. She has the right to be a good wife and a good mother, but she does not have the right to refuse to marry. The system is designed so that refusing is so costly that it becomes functionally impossible. You can refuse, technically, but the cost of that refusal is so high that most women do not choose to pay it. Most women, like Sarah, eventually say yes, not because they have changed their minds, but because the alternative to saying yes is unbearable. I think about all the women in conservative Amish communities right now who are being pressured toward marriage. I think about the girls who do not want to marry the men who have proposed. I think about the young women who want to wait, who want to know someone better, who want to be sure. I think about all of them understanding, with absolute clarity, that saying no is not really an option. And I think about the ones who do say no anyway. I think about the courage that requires. I think about what they lose. I think about whether it is fair to ask that of them. After I left the Amish community, I learned that women in other religions, other communities, other cultures sometimes also face pressure to marry. But I also learned that there are communities where a woman's refusal is actually respected, where saying no means the man moves on and finds someone else, where a woman's agency matters more than the community's need for her to be married. I learned that in many communities, a woman can say no and remain a full member of her family and her social circle. I learned that in many places, being unmarried is not a transgression. I learned that there are worlds where a woman's right to refuse is actually protected. But in my community, there was no such protection. In my community, saying no to marriage was a transgression so profound that it had to be corrected, either through pressure that made you change your mind, or through exile that removed you from the community entirely. What I want to say to any young woman in a conservative Amish community who is being pressured to marry, who is facing proposals from men she does not want to marry, who is feeling the weight of community expectation pressing down on her, is this: your refusal matters. Your right to say no is real and valid, even if your community does not recognize it. Even if your refusal comes with tremendous cost, even if you have to leave everything you know, your right to choose your own future is worth protecting. I do not say this lightly. I know what it costs to refuse. I know what it means to give up your entire community, your family relationships, everything that has defined your life. But I also know what it costs to say yes when you mean no. I know what it costs to spend years in a marriage you did not choose, with a man you did not choose, in a life that was not chosen, but was rather the only option that did not result in exile. What happens if an Amish woman says no to marriage is that she is offered a choice that is not really a choice. Say yes or lose everything, accept or be cast out. Most women choose acceptance, but the ones who choose refusal, the ones who are willing to pay the cost, they are the ones who actually get to build a life that is theirs, and that is worth something. This is my story, and the story of Sarah, and the story of Elizabeth, and the stories of all the women who said no and paid the price for it. If it stayed with you, tell me in the comments, and subscribe if you want to keep hearing the truth from behind the prayer cap.